Hello and welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob and we have returned to the D&D Retrospective series where we look back at the history of arguably the world's greatest role-playing game and look into its published works, its modules, and its literary releases. And today, at long last, we are continuing our deep dive into Red Hand of Doom, the celebrated adventure module released in the 3rd edition 3.5 era. It has been a little while since I have streamed one of these before. Hopefully, we're back on track and these are going to be a bit more regular. So, for those of you who have been enjoying this series, thank you ever so much for your patience. I really do appreciate all the wonderful feedback that I've had about this series, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that the wait for them isn't as long as it has been. So without further ado, let us continue watching. Let us continue reading. You guys can continue watching. I'll continue reading. Now, something that I need to point out, for those, it might have been a little while since you've seen one of these episodes. If not, let me just reiterate. It seems that the way that I've been looking into this module, the tale has grown in the telling, shall we say. Meaning that while this video is entitled Act 3, we are still not in Part 3 of the module. So please take those titles as just titles for the video, not title for the content explored in the module. Because under the advice of some of my wonderful viewers who have told me not to rush, just to do it, just continue as we're going, I'm not going to rush on to the next part. And we still had, where we left it, quite a lot of part 2 of the module to look into. Now, to that end, I think it best that we go back to the recap sections in this module. And by the way, for those of you who are watching this that might be a bit perplexed, carry on watching for now, but if you're interested in what happened previously, I definitely recommend going and watching videos Act 1 and Act 2 to get a bit more context. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to have a quick recap of what's been happening so far in the Elsir Vale that is under threat from the High Wyrmlord, that great name, and the forces collectively known as the Red Hand of Doom. So as we explored before, this campaign rather handily has these breakdowns per chapter. It's a very, very large publication for a module. It is a full setting with an adventure with other adventures inside it. It's an extensive world, really, that you can just grab and play, or can be dropped into your worlds or world. So we go back to, I've just gone past it, the breakdown, and it breaks down the chapters, if you like, of the campaign. And as we explored before, the creators rather handily giving you sort of like a time scale for when the enemies are operating, which is incredibly helpful. And then you have these larger sections that tell you what's happening in each part of the game. So we were in Part 2, where we last left off. Part 2, the Ruins of Rhest. And I'll read the text. Something has cut off the North Road in the vicinity of the Black Fens. None can flee by that route, nor can help from more distant cities reach besieged Elsir Vale. While scouting the swamp and seeking an answer to the question of who or what has cut off the road, the PCs encounter the reclusive owl-riding wild elves known as the Tiri Kitor. From them, the PCs learn that the Wyrmlord Sarvith has allied with a black dragon named Regirax. Dragon names once again, people. Regirax. There we go. Has allied with the black dragon named Regirax, and together they have established a hatchery of sinister dragon spawn in the ruins of the drowned city of Rest. The PCs must defeat both the Wyrmlord and the dragon to prevent the appearance of these vicious creatures in the war. If the PCs play their cards right, they can even gain the aid of the Tiri Kitor elves against the advancing Red Hand Horde. And at the end of the section, the PCs discover the threat of the Ghost Lord. See part 3. Meanwhile, the Red Hand Horde is striking deep all across the Vale's western marches, and the war is going poorly indeed for the beleaguered humans. Well. Quite a good summary of what to expect from part 2 then. We kind of did have a little look into what was happening. Those of you who have followed up to this point will recall that we explored the fallout of what happened when the Skull Gorge Bridge was either destroyed or not destroyed. And we learned that the Red Hand were sowing chaos and confusion ahead of their advancing forces with spies, with raids, and all sorts of really cool adventure hooks. And it is at this point that we can safely assume that the player characters receive a notification of some kind that, something has cut off the old North Road, which is likely critical in the attempt to evade the advancing forces of the Red Hand. So we're going to hopefully find where we last were and go into that. I did give mention to what these creatures were, but to be honest, I wasn't too happy with the end of our last video. Kind of seemed that I was like a kid in a candy shop, really, and you'll have to forgive me for that, because I was looking at all different things and not really focusing on one particular area. So I'm going to do my best to zone in on certain elements of this this amazing work and hopefully get some good discussion from it. There's that picture once again. Hopefully, let's just check the stream. The picture of the massacre at Drellin's Ferry, the one that we learned the player characters could only delay, but not stop. And here we are. The Ruins of Rhest Part 2. And there's that excellent illustration that we did see last time of Night Flight over Star Song Hill. Yes, the Tiri Kitor elves are a really interesting and really cool concept of a wild elf faction. Their culture is based all around the fact that they live in this region of the Vale, and that of course they are all trained as owl riders, which in itself is pretty cool. And you can imagine from a player character's perspective, if you're thinking wisely, probably a vital asset to have in the approaching war, or in the war that's already started, really, at this point. You can see the elves and the owls being critical weapons against an approaching army, not only to send fast communications. As we discussed in a video or two before, we were talking about how the inclusion of dragons in this game means that the enemy are able to send messages back and forth quite quickly, because dragons can fly really, really fast. So this inclusion of owl riders could potentially balance the scales in that end. And yes, we looked at some of these. So this was a few of the examples of what was happening that the Red Hand were doing to sow chaos ahead of their forces. And here we are. The Black Fens. This is where we left off, and this is where the player characters would have arrived. They would have arrived at the Black Fens, and there is a map somewhere. Let me see. And as before, I've done my best not to really read ahead, because I want to read this and kind of react to it along with those of you watching and listening. And as ever, we are going to be examining this material as if we're going to run it as a DM. So here we are, the Black Ferns. Azar Cool has a secret weapon. Now, Azar Cool, you might remember, is the High Wyrmlord. So Azar Cool has a secret weapon, the Spawn of Tiamat. At this point, only a few of these infernal dragon spawn have been successfully transplanted from the Nine Hells to the material plane. But those he has successfully introduced into the region are proving to be quite fecund. One variety is known as the green spawn razor fiends. Infused as they are with the blood of green dragons, these spawn do as well in water as they do on land. When Azar Cool managed to procure a clutch of green spawn eggs, he entrusted them to Wyrmlord Sarvith. With the aid of the black dragon Regierix, it's different every time, Regierix, Sarvith has created a hatchery of razor fiends in the ruined city of Rhest, a development that could soon provide a terrible new addition to the horde. And then it moves on to descriptions of the Tiri Kitor. Aside from defeating Wyrmlord Sarvith and the dragon Regierix, there we go, and putting a stop to the Tiamat spawn hatchery, the PCs can accomplish another important goal in this part of the adventure. If they say and do the right things, they can forge an alliance with the local tribe of the Wild Elves, who call themselves the Tiri Kitor. In order to forge an alliance, the PCs must not only perform several tasks to aid the elves, but must also make good impressions on several key and influential tribe members. The elves in question are 4 in number. Here we go, more names. Celeria Starsinger, the tribe's leader. Trelara Nightshadow, the tribe's historian. Kiliar Arrowswift, leader of the tribe's hunters. And Ilian Snowmantle, the tribe's high priest. First impressions mean a lot to the Tiri Kitor. They believe that one can know the nature of a friend or enemy based entirely on how that person presents herself or himself when first meeting someone new. Now, that is interesting, isn't it? Let us put our hands on our hearts for a moment, fellow DMs watching, listening to this. Can you think of an example where player characters have started speaking to an important NPC, not fully realizing how particularly they important are in that particular area or that particular setting, and, I don't know, coming across quite badly? There is something to be said of escapism, and sometimes player characters, shall we say, speak to other characters, perhaps not with the reverence or politeness even that might be due to them. Can you imagine if they immediately ruin an alliance with the Tiri Kitor because they are particularly harsh judges of character? That could be quite interesting, that you're starting off on the back foot with the Tiri Kitor, and then have to sort of rebuild a rapport with these elves. But this is something that's really cool, and it does introduce something that I really like, and it is one of the few things that I do know about this particular chapter of the Red Hand of Doom, and that is that there is this alliance system, whereby by achieving certain objectives, the people that have created this work have scored points to certain events. So you as a DM can kind of look at what the player characters have achieved and say they've earned this many alliance points. Is that enough to total a victory in the eyes of the Tiri Kitor? Because as we will learn and as we will look into this, yes, of course, it is ideal to get allies to stand against the Red Hand Doom. However, as is with every NPC we've come across in this module so far, in this work, every faction or NPC have their own motivations, their own priorities. So it's not enough just to come and ask the Tiri Kitor, can you help us? Well, they will say, well, we have our own problems. We as well are under threat from the Red Hand of Doom. And while there are threats still in our lands, You know, we can't help. But perhaps if you aid us with our problem, we can aid you with yours. And the first sign of this comes in the confrontation against this green spawn razor fiend, which takes place in the Blackfens. As we spoke, this whole area is in the Blackfens, and there is set up this battle against a spawn of Tiamat, where the PCs stumble into a nest of green spawn razor fiends, those hellish dragon crossbreeds rise up from out of nowhere. Actually, let's just read what the text says. A low mossy island of mud and peat protrudes from the marsh waters ahead. 2 gnarled trees grow fitfully on the rugged ground, and sprawled across their turgid roots is the ruined and bloody remains of a horse-sized owl. The once magnificent bird's body has been partially dissolved in places, and swaths of foul, dark green fluid still fizzle and pop, eating away at exposed flesh and bone. That's very interesting. And listen, you see, first of all, one of these glorious owls that are ridden by the Tiri Kitor. And you also, you can look at this poetically and say that this gracious creature of the wilds is now kind of under threat. This metaphor for this culture is indeed been attacked, and now it's the player character's job to come and help. Now they're saying that these green spawn razor fiends have remained in the Ruins of Rhest, much to the warlord's Sarvis distress. So it is kind of put out there to you as the DM that these green spawn razor fiends are unleashed rather than controlled. They've just been set loose. So there's just this invasive species of dragon hybrid creatures running around causing trouble. He has been sending fully grown spawn back to the horde as they mature, but some get loose and escape into the surrounding marsh. As the PCs make their way into the Blackfens, they run into this green spawn razor fiend before their first day is done. The razor fiend is lurking in the water near a low hill, having just captured and eaten most of a giant owl, and all of its unfortunate rider. Full for now, it lurks in the underbrush nearby. Around the PCs spot the owl's carcass. The green spawn razor fiend spots them, unless the PCs are taking care to be stealthy. The creature then immediately rushes through the underbrush to attack. The razor fiend begins the encounter 50 feet away from the player characters. My goodness. And then it describes more about the terrain. And yes, the battle commences. And it says encounter level 7. Once again, I am taking that with a pinch of salt. I happen to think that there are quite a number of difficult encounters in this supplement, and that's a good thing in my opinion. But still, has to be understood that these things are dangerous. Let's have a quick look at the tactics of the battle. We won't dwell on this too much because I do want to get through quite a lot today, but we will look at the tactics of the razor fiends. And this is great, and this is something that you would find a lot of, in particular these modules of this particular age. Kind of gives you a rough idea of how the enemies fight. Always good to have kind of like a direction to go in, an objective for you to have as a DM for what you want the fight to achieve and what the enemy is trying to achieve, and then that kind of gives, it's not just one enemy hits the players and the players hit the enemy. The enemy is invariably trying to do something in particular and has a certain tactic and how it's going to achieve it. So once the combat begins, the Razor Fiend uses its spring attack feat and breath weapon to wear down the PCs without giving them the chance to mire it down in melee. So it's going to strike and move away and fire from range. And it can use its outstanding jump modifier, plus 27, to leap over obstacles that otherwise would slow its movement. So that's quite cool. Imagine this creature's luring the player characters into difficult terrain, miring their movement, and then leaping around itself and blasting them with acid. And when the Razor Fiend has been done and has been destroyed, let's see. The Razorfiend has done quite well for itself, having plundered a ruined wizard's manor not far off. Its treasure lies in a rusty iron coffer, sitting on the high point of the islet. A headband of intellect +2, a +2 rapier, a pearl of power, a ring of protection +2, and 720 gold pieces. And this is something crucial. If the PCs search the dead owl, they automatically discover it has a jade band around one leg. The band is inscribed with elven letters that spell the name, oh god, Leokio. Leokio. The band itself is worth 50 gold pieces. And if the players cut open the Razorfiend and make a successful DC 15 search check, they find in its distinct digestive tract an obsidian ring set with a single white pearl. This ring belonged to the Owl Rider, an elf named Lanica, and it's worth 250 gold pieces. Now, what we have here is an opportunity, further opportunity to prove to the Tiri Kitor elves that they are competent. Listen, you've been having this problem with this Razorfiend, this spawn that's invading the surrounding lands of your home. Well, guess what? We have dispatched it. This foul creature that somehow managed to bring down one of your glorious steeds and their rider. Well, listen, here's this band. We are competent. It's already giving ins on how to impress the Tiri Kitor. Now, there's a number of ways of meeting the Tiri Kitor, which I won't go into, but it says here the Tiri Kitor have numerous encampments in the Blackferns, most of which contain only a dozen or two tents or tree platforms and serve as a home for 30 to 40 wild elves. The largest encampment is known as Star Song Hill, and it's home to nearly 500 elves. Star Song Hill is a mound of dry land surrounded by a thick grove of trees. The hill within this grove only rises 20 feet from the surface of the surrounding wetlands at its highest point. The elves live in simple hide and wooden shelters similar to wigwams. The southern third of the hill is uninhabited by elves. Here the giant owls, allied with the tribe, nest in the tall trees. And that's interesting, isn't it? That's something that's a clue already that you can think about their culture. I misspoke earlier. I said that they were steeds, but actually they are allies. They obviously have a balanced relationship with these owls, which is pretty cool. So nice that there's like little clues into the relationship of these elves with the owls there. They are allied with them. So that's pretty cool. The PCs are likely to first arrive at Starsong Hill escorted by Kiliar Arrowswift. So before there was talk of this barricade up here, which is also an encounter. Let's see. Well, we won't go into it, but there is a particular... They run into this barricade. And... now I wonder, is this the reason why the road is closed? Oh, okay, so it says once the PCs defeat and scare off the guards and throw open 2 sets of double doors of the watchtower, they will have reopened the road and no reinforcements come from the Red Hand. Okay, so they come here and they've actually discovered that the Red Hand hold this barricade. My apologies, I thought for some reason the Tiri Kitor had taken control here, but obviously not. So this would be another battle. You find out why that the road has been closed. The Red Hand of Doom have arrived in this area and are doing their best to minimize the travel of enemy forces by cutting off this road, this vital route here, so they can battle those forces of the Red Hand, and obviously that's enough for this Kiliar and his hunters to learn of the whereabouts and of the existence of the PCs and bring them to Star Song Hill, which is pretty cool. And like we see, we have a number of important NPCs in the Tiri Kitor ranks that I detailed before, and it just gives you a list of what these people are like. So Kiliar, for example, is a bit of a loner. Celeria is calm, wise, perceptive. Trilara is normally energetic, bright-eyed. and beautiful, and is always ready to break into song. And Ilian's snow mantle is absent, but he returns from ministering to a distant encampment just before the dawn of the day, after Lanica's funeral ceremony. Also, there's a funeral as well. And I like as well that it gives you a little bit of insight as to something that you can latch onto as a DM in terms of your performance, and in terms of your portrayal of these characters. I mean, immediately it kind of gives you clues as to how to be Celeria and Kiliar. Very interesting. And there, look, it's a wonderful illustration and map there of the Star Song Hill, which is pretty great. So you can see why it's a pretty good place, quite a defendable location, surrounded by water, but of course not ideal when dealing with these greenspawn that are, as we learned, as capable in water as they are on land. So there we are. That's that. So let's go back. Or onwards, rather. Now, let's see. There was something that I wanted to look at here. Where is it? There was a there is the alliance points thing that I'd like to look at, because it kind of breaks down the objectives of how to appease the elves, which I thought was pretty cool, and I did want to have a look at. There is a description of how when you, if you aren't close to Star Song Hill, or if you want the player characters to be brought before these Council of the Elves, they can go via or go with owl flight, so the elves bring them on the back of the giant owls. And there's this wonderful description: the giant owls are silent as they wing their way through the gloom, apparently able to navigate effortlessly through the darkness. And your elf escorts are also silent, aside from softly pointing out some dimly glimpsed landmark far below from time to time, which is pretty cool. And one thing that the elves are going to point to is the fact that there is, there is only so much that the elves can do while this land is compromised with the forces of the Red Hand. And the sign of their forces being at the barricade is just one clue as to their influence already being here. So that's pretty cool. Now, once we've learned and built up a relationship with the elves, it says Celeria is ready to answer any questions the PCs might have for her. Possible questions and responses follow. Now, this is good because this gives us an insight as to what player characters might ask, and it equips us as a DM to know how we answer. But also, it's going to provide quite a lot of good exposition for us in this video as well, going forward. So, let's have a look at the first question that they could ask. What do you know about the Ruins of Rhest? We do not go there. The place has bad memories. It was once the centre of a proud nation, but now it is little more than a few ruined buildings slowly sinking into the mire. We respect the memories of that folk and avoid the place. The lizard folk do not. And here is what we learn. We learn that this place has fallen into evil. This nearby settlement that once was now overcome with lizard folk. Why is the Red Hand so interested in Rest? I do not know. Months ago, some dark power established itself in the ruins and brought the lizard folk under its dominion. Whoever it is has not meddled with our encampments yet. We have not tried to infiltrate the ruins for fear of arousing a wrath we may be ill-equipped to cope with. Quite wise. Do you know about the forces in Rest? Or what do you know about the forces in Rest? They are not many, but they are strong. Their leader is cruel and clever, a goblin chief. They have claimed several buildings near the centre of the ruins. The thing that worries me most is the dragon. Here we go again, another dragon. A dragon, they say, explain. We have seen the beast in disguise. It has not attacked any of our encampments, yet I fear it is simply biding its time. The dragon is black and not quite as large as one of our giant owls. What was that creature we fought? They are something new. We've seen only a few of them over the past few weeks. Poor Lanakar was the first of us to fall to one. Our high priest, Ilian Snowmantle, claims that they have ties to the Infernal. Until today, none of the beasts have been sighted. Far from Rest, it seems obvious that the ruins' new tenants have something to do with them. So we're learning more and more about this, where these hybrids are coming from, at least. Can you provide us with assistance in our mission? You are our guests. If you need healing, you should speak with Ilian Snowmantle at the temple. If you wish to trade, simply ask. Beyond this, there is little I can offer. I must keep our defences focused on our homes. Can you help us fight the Red Hand? The question we were discussing earlier. Alas, I dare not. We need all our warriors here. Should the beasts in Rest grow more numerous, perhaps if the menace in Rest were driven out, hint, 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 then perhaps we can help you. Can you help us navigate the Black Fens? We can provide you with boats, but cannot loan you our owls. They are our strongest defence, and we may need them all in the coming days. Very wise, I think. Now, I might, and we're looking about how we can run this. I would potentially allow the player characters to be alighted to the Ruins of Rest, so they can then save all of their resources so they don't run into anything on the road. As with the other locations that we've explored, let me see if I can find it again. In the Black Fens. Yeah, here we are. As with every area in this campaign setting, they have a random encounter table. And this is the random encounter for the table for the Black Fens. So not only can you run into 1d2 Greenspawn Razor Fiends. Oh, it says see page 119. Should we have a quick look at their stats? I am curious. I was going to look earlier. I thought, no, and I resisted the urge. But I am remembering what you guys who watch this said. We should continue where our interests lead us. So 119. The Greenspawn Razor Fiends. So they are a large magical beast, dragonborn, dragon blood. Okay. My god. Yeah, so they're pretty lethal. They have wing blades and a bite. What else can we learn about them? They have damage reduction. They're immune to acid and paralysis. I wish there was a picture. There might be a picture deeper in, but yeah. They seem pretty ferocious. They can, as we learned, they have a breath weapon, 5d6 acid, reflex DC 18. Yeah, and that old jump check of plus 27, my goodness me, helps them lure people into the swamp. Very good. Okay, well, it's good to check these things out. It's good to see what we're throwing at the players. So, oh yeah, sorry, what else was on the random encounter table, quickly? So, you could run into a Tiri Kitor patrol just randomly, a Chul, an 8-headed Hydra, as opposed to the 6-headed Hydra earlier, which apparently is an easy fight, apparently. 1d4 manticores, so more manticores. We've got giant crocodiles, giant wasps, harpies, will-o'-the-wisps, a gibbering mouther, an ochre jelly, sturges, ghouls, and a ghast, and 2d4 lizard folk. So that's pretty intense. So, as I mentioned, it might be worthwhile as a DM to just have a look at your environment, and if you are using the random encounter table, maybe suggest them, or you might be able to avoid some of these encounters and preserve your resources, and see if you can be dropped off to the Ruins of Rest via Owl, or just shy of the Ruins of Rest, perhaps. And then you could have that cool scene of your player characters getting to mount these amazing flying creatures. Because I mean, it's something it's something that the player characters will take away and remember about their time with the Tiri Kitor. That time we flew on the back of giant owls. You know, at the end of the day, campaigns are all well and good when you've got stats and encounters planned, but sometimes you need moments. And I think riding on the back of a giant owl would be a moment well remembered. So anyway, let's have a look at the Ruins of Rhest. The proud city of Rhest, capital of the kingdom of Restalor, once stood at the centre of civilization in this region, its rule extending far to the east and west and south. After 300 years of glory, a combination of corruption, treachery and civil strife weakened the kingdom to such an extent that it was unable to withstand the horde that assaulted it 200 years ago. This last great goblinoid uprising before the present day saw the kingdom destroyed and the city of Rhest sacked. As the goblin horde looted the burning town, its remaining defenders made a fateful decision and destroyed the levees that held back the waters of the Stonewash River, flooding the city and drowning the horde. In the aftermath, the survivors abandoned their homes and resettled in Dunovar, Brindle, and similar communities to the south. For the last 2 centuries, the city of Rhest has slowly been sinking into the sodden black fens. Oh my word, what an incredibly cool flashback that would make. Yeah, that's incredible. I love the idea. Can you imagine being in the position of those people fleeing from the city of Rhest? The city is lost, but we can destroy the horde here. We can save the rest of our civilization, but at the cost of an entire city. That's so cool! Oh my god, oh god. Just when you think that there is no more depth to be explored, something that comes along like this, which is the backstory of the Ruins of Rhest. How incredible is that? Wow. So you're coming at this particular settlement with an element of sadness, certainly, I would think, if you were successful in a history check, or you were able to find some place to research this particular site. You could learn about that. I would like, if I was running this, I would make it a priority to ensure that backstory is used somehow, because that's incredible. I'm sure we'll learn of ways of how to include that in the exploration here. And it gives a description of what Rhest looks like now. It says a large, dark lake broods in the marshland here, measuring nearly 2 miles wide. The cloying reek of decaying vegetation and swamp ooze is thick in the air, and countless frogs and insects and marsh birds chirp and croak and call to each other. Out near the middle of the lake, dozens of decrepit stone buildings jut from the black waters. Most cases, these buildings sag and lean treacherously, the windows of their upper stories now even with the still lake's surface. 2 buildings that seem to have survived relatively intact draw your attention. Oh, also... There's a little thing here about Lanica's funeral, that elf that was killed. Gives you a little bit of an insight into that. And a whole scene to play out. You can do dancing and do performance checks. It's on brand. There's a performance check. I have to obviously draw attention to it. Anyway, sorry. That's interesting to look at. Back to the Ruins of Rhest. So what was it saying? It was saying... 1, a large stone tower about a quarter mile from the southern shore, and the other a large stone building near the lake's centre. So there's 2 structures they were talking about before. Both structures have rickety wooden walkways ringing them at water level. These look like recent additions. It would seem that someone has made an attempt to settle here. So here we are. Our invaders have made their home here. And that would be a pretty good way of telling the player characters, well, listen, yes, this happened 200 years ago, but in the time since, look what has occurred. And they obviously already know from the Tiri Kitor, the lizard folk lurk here. Look at the map, the fantastic map. Once again, we are gifted with an idea of the layout of the city itself. So points 3 and 2 denote those 2 towers, I believe. And yes, various points around the town of interest. Now, I've realised something that might have actually scuppered the player plans here, because I said, well, why not drop them off by an owl? But the original suggestion was to give them a boat. With a boat, you're able to then wade your way over or row your way over to the abandoned section of this city, or the whole abandoned city in the water. Whereas if you got dropped off by an owl and left, you would be left wanting. Now, you could either ask the player characters to do a team building exercise like you do if you're at a particular work event. You have to build a raft. That's just something that happens in life every now and then. Sometimes you just gotta build a raft. So that could actually be quite fun. Or they could just find a boat. You know. But certainly something to think about. Let's see. So it continues with this description of the city, and it kind of gives you rough things to think about. The lake's waters are calm and require only a DC 10 swim check to navigate. They are treacherous, and a character who fails the swim check by more than 5 can become tangled in rooted debris. So at any point falling in could be a danger. So you kind of reiterate that, yeah, you can explore this ruined settlement in the water, but you should be afraid of the water. And not just because there are lizard folk and other such menaces inside, but also because you don't just go wading into a ruined city that's flooded. It's incredibly dangerous. Collapsing buildings and currents that drag you beneath the surface. So here we are. And it says, the denizens of Rest. For the last several decades, numerous small tribes of lizard folk have lived in the crude huts that ring the lake shores. Primitive and superstitious, the lizard folk have long regarded the buildings in the central position of the lake as taboo, especially since the young dragon Regierax, bloody hell, I'll get it right eventually, claimed one as his lair. Okay, so we learn here that Regierax has the central tower as his lair. So it looks like that's what we're dealing with. Lots of lizard folk and the dragon. The Red Hand presence in the lake is, for now, confined mainly to the bell tower and the town hall, and consists of the dragon, Regierax. Look! Okay, right, it's not just me! It's not just me! Haha! I have found at long last, I have found a flaw in the Red Hand of Doom. Here, faithful viewers, it's spelt Regierax. Here, it's spelt Regierax. I think it's Regierax, but it's spelt, well. So it's not just me! Gaslighting module. Me questioning my reading skills, which aren't amazing, to be honest, at this point. But here we are. I do myself a disservice. I've read this. I can read. Back to the text. So, all that said, the presence of the Red Hand is confined to the bell tower and the town hall. Consists of the dragon Regierax, a fair number of hobgoblins, a few green spawn razor fiends, an Etin, and Wyrmlord Sarvith, the mastermind of this part of the Red Hand's plan. The rest of the lake is uninhabited by intelligent foes. If the PCs insist on exploring, feel free to have them encounter giant crocodiles or ochra jellies, ghouls or ghasts, and perhaps a shambling mound or two. Good to know. Wow, and then here we go. It kind of gives you sort of like an idea of what they can do. They can observe Rest, so this is if the players want to be particularly careful and want to go scouting. This is amazing. I love this. They say that with a DC 20 spot check, they can see lizard folk lurking about the various huts. And after an hour of continuous observation, the PCs automatically notice the lizard folk and so on. Successful listen check allows them to hear distant chittering. After 2 hours of continuous observation, the PCs automatically notice the periodic roars and bellows of the green spawn razor fiend. After 3 hours of observation, the characters see a group of 6 lizard folk board a reed boat and paddle across the lake to the central building. Oh, okay. So that's really cool. It kind of gives the players a reward, like in terms of information, for scouting the place out and scoping it out, and what's it called? Being on a stakeout without the car or without the boat. If you listened to me earlier. After nearly 5 hours of watching, the PC see a human-sized black dragon, Regierix, clamber up from within the central building to perch on the roof. A goblin wearing bright armour, a mithril shirt, and carrying a wicked-looking bow appears, chats with the dragon for a minute. So, how's your day going? And then climbs up on its back. This is Wyrmlord Sarvith. I didn't realise he was going to bloody ride the dragon. After taking a moment to stretch his wings, Regierix launches into the air and heads east to hunt for food. He won't return for 1d4 hours, making the interim an excellent time for the PCs to act. What a reward! As I was saying, that's fantastic. If the player characters have taken that much time out of their plans to make sure that they're carefully observing this area, they are rewarded. Look, if you wait, the dragon is eventually going to go off and hunt, and Sarvith will go with him. And then it talks about infiltration, and we're not going to go through all of this, but certain checks that can be performed to make sure that they can infiltrate the area well, and the enemy reactions. So if the alarm is raised, the lizard folk in the surrounding huts mobilise immediately, eager to please their dragon god. So they view Regierix, whatever, as a dragon god. Very interesting. Or rather, they know that dragon serves the Red Hand of Doom, which in turn serves Tiamat. That's probably more likely. Well, probably not actually. Lizard folk, they're just, they're... I feel like I'm being rude to lizard folk if I call them basic. They're not basic. They're just, they have simple pleasures in life. Anyway, all that to say, while Corculan in the lower area. Who's Corculan? Do we miss someone called Corculan? Probably. Maybe that's the Etin. Well, it's not Regierix, and it's not Sarvith, so I don't know who that is. No, I don't see who that is. I could very well have missed that. If I missed that and anyone picks up on that, let me know who Corculan is. That would be great. Corculan gives them orders, typically sending 2 groups. Well, it sounds like he might be a lizard folk. Okay. And if Wyrmlord Sarvith and Nurklenak and his Etin minion and Regierix don't respond to the initial alarm. So if they're still there at this time, they don't respond. They'll wait. They let the enemy come to them, which, to be fair, is pretty smart. Let the lizard folk do the killing. Let the lizard folk do the dying. Very good. So anyway, all that to say that there is an infiltration of the settlement. There are lizard folk huts to explore. There is the bell tower. This stone building, obviously an old bell tower, protrudes from the lake at a slant, reaching the height of 30 feet above the surface of the water. Eroded images of dozens of lions stalking, sleeping, and pouncing adorn its sides. A rickety-looking wooden platform has been built around the tower's circumference at water level, with 3 small skiffs docked alongside. It appears that the tower is 3 stories tall, and its only up 2 floors remain above water. Ooh, the bell tower is held by a group of 6 hobgoblin veterans. Here we are, commanded by a hobgoblin blade bearer named Corculan. Yes, there we go. And I was just about to say, you have to have a fight on that bell tower. Come on, that is such a fantastic place to have some battle or other atop a leaning bell tower, and you can imagine rubble tumbling off it amidst the struggle. And they say that the battle ahead can actually alert other lizard folk or members of the Red Hand to accompany and to follow and to strike at where the alarm is being raised, which I think is good. It should. I mean, I've done this a few times, and sometimes it can. It's a bit of a balancing act, really, because like when you've got a dungeon, for example, and it's broken up into different rooms, or you're in an area inhabited by lots of enemies, just because you're having a battle here doesn't mean that your enemy is not going to hear you fighting and then reinforcements showing up. It's really important. How do you think the player character would feel if they were that far away and they weren't given a listen check to learn if something wasn't going on? So the same should be considered for the enemies. And in this case, it does give you the option for hobgoblin veterans of a first wave, second wave, and third wave, including Corculan, to arrive on the scene and do battle against them, each with 20 HP. And as hobgoblin veterans go, listen, hobgoblins aren't to be sniffed at, as we discussed in an earlier point in this series. Hobgoblins are well organized, well armed. And they're bred to fight. They live to fight. They're not like their cowardly lesser selves. They're pretty terrifying. They should be competent anyway. So anyway, tactics, it suggests a massive iron bell weighing tons hangs within the upper level of the old tower. Its clapper has long since rusted away, but if the hobgoblins see intruders anywhere on the lake, automatic if PCs aren't doing anything to hide themselves, they beat on the bell with the hilts of their swords, raising a clamour that alerts the rest of the Red Hand troops. There we go. So that bell tower could be, not only is it a sentry point where they can look out over the rest of the flooded city, but also it is where their central alarm system is. Oh, look, and then there's the town hall as well, which is the other building that remains intact. And there's a map here. So the town hall description is, what must have been an impressive stone structure now lies half submerged in the lake. Its facade still displays majestic heroes bearing heraldic lion devices. Now, there was a character that we discussed with who was like a lion paladin, I think. So this is leaning into that particular imagery, which is quite cool. And the lions on the bell tower before. Anyway. Its facade displays majestic heroes bearing heraldic lion devices and armed with swords and spears and bows. Their countenance is carved in marble pillars. The building's ground floor is now completely submerged, and its second floor sits just above the water level. Its marbled heroes caked with moss and mud. Cool. Very good. And it says here that the boardwalk within this thing is... Oh no, sorry. So, Wyrmlord side of the sand is hobgoblins build a wooden walkway. And the floating bridge connects it to air. So there's a floating bridge that leads from here. And two ogres guard it. And if these ogres are alerted to trouble, they beat on the walls in areas 3 have to alert Nurklenack and the Wyrmlord Sarvith before they attack. Very good. My god. So it's very, very hard to get to the Wyrmlord without him knowing that you're there. Which is good. And challenging. And also rewards players if they really want to be like a stealthy party. Like a party of rogues. Or just rewarding the rogue for going it alone. Scouting. Not going it alone, but scouting ahead and stuff. To ensure that they can ascertain what threats lie ahead. So all rewarding gameplay that has consequences if certain actions aren't met. The Razorfiend Hatchery. So this is what the other thing that we've been looking into, and hopefully something that you can go back to the Tiri Kitor elves saying that, listen, we've discovered the hatchery of this place. One story stone building once stood here, but now its flat roof has almost entirely collapsed. The section to the east remains intact, forming a narrow, mossy platform above the water. The remaining walls stand about half a foot above the water level, creating an L-shaped enclosure. The entire area has been reinforced with a fence of logs and branches, lashed together with ropes, extending the ruined walls of the building up another 10 feet. Okay. Now, this is the area where the Red Hand have been keeping its green spawn Razor Fiend eggs. Say that when you're drunk. The gate is lashed shut, but a DC 10 use rope check. Use rope. Use rope. Otherwise, a character can clamber up to the 10-foot high wooden fence that surrounds the area with the DC 10 climb check. Or just cut the rope. Oh dear. So there's a pool inside that's 10 feet deep and it currently contains 30 Razor Fiend eggs. Each egg is roughly 1 foot in diameter and warm to the touch with leathery texture. Now, put your hands in your hearts once again, fellow DMs, and ask yourselves, do you have a player in your campaign that would want to take one of these eggs and perhaps nurture it and raise the creature as one of their own? Because I can see that happening. Like, hands down, I can see that happening. However, each egg is roughly 1 foot in diameter and warm to the touch with a leathery texture and tiny sharp scales that causes small but painful cuts. 1 point of damage to anyone who handles one with bare hands. They are fixed in place along the inner walls of the pool by a sticky resin exuding by the Razor Fiend Guardian. What Guardian? Wait! And it would appear that, yes, that there is probably an encounter with the green spawn Razor Fiend right here, lunging at them if they attempt to take the nest. If the Razor Fiend notices them, it lunges into action, it splashes and roars to serve to alert the rest of the Red Hand troops. So once again, it's all about raising the alarm, and another battle with another green spawn Razor Fiend occurs. My god. Then there's the Etin guard post, that Etin we were learning about earlier. For those of you who don't know, an Etin is a two-headed troll. A dim light trickles down the stairwells from above into what was once probably a grand hallway, now bare except for shaggy fur piled against one wall. A foul, fetid smell rises up from its place as if it were the den of some great beast. Very good. Okay. Now it's talked about Nurklenak's Etin minion. I'm guessing Nurklenak is a hobgoblin. I don't know. But yeah, there seems like there's a battle with the Etin as well. There's an interrogation room where this chamber is clean and well organised despite its grim furnishings. Small barbed cages rest against the wall, not quite large enough to stand in and not quite wide enough to sit in. Several barrels of water are on the floor to the north, along with a blood-stained mop. A simple cot and a chair and a desk round out the room's contents. Now we've heard about this before. I've just seen that this is talking about Nurklenak. This room serves as Nurklenak's barracks and private interrogation room. Clean and tidy to a fault, Nurklenak uses the water and mop to clean up the room after a session with a victim. He has had only the stray elf or lizard folk to practice his craft on of late, and longs for a greater challenge. If any of the PCs are captured during this part of the adventure, they'll certainly end up here. Interrogation and torture aren't Nurklenak's only duties, however. He's also responsible for keeping the Greenspawn Razor Fiend in Area 3C from escaping. Of late he has taken to using charm monster spells on the creature while he waits for the new batch of eggs to hatch. So he's in charge of making sure the eggs get looked after as well. When he's not tending to the hatchery, Nurklenak spends his time composing parables and maxims to tell his victims as he tortures them. Oh, that's great. I think he is. Nurklenak is Kolkor Zul Mindbender. So his Nurklenak prefers to have charmed his Etin. Okay, cool. So that's why he's a Mindbender, because he's he has powerful charm magic. Very good. So, or anyone else fights his fight. So he gets people to fight fights for him, while he hangs back and uses spells against targets like to have poor will saving throws. Trust his Rosal fighters. Thanks for letting us know. Any Rosal fighters, go for them. Like most of the Kolkar-Zul Mindbenders, Nurklenak is a coward at heart, and if brought below 20 hit points, he tries to flee, commanding any charmed victims to cover his escape. Wow, there we go. And you can find some gold in there as well. 155 gold pieces, 320 silver pieces. Find ruby set a bracelet the shape of a sinuous lion worth 200 gold pieces. My. And then there's Sarvith's HQ. Right, well, this is a Wyrmlord, so we're going to have to talk about facing this guy. And looking, how are we doing for time? We're doing great for time. So, I'm going to have a drink, though. This is the only thing, obviously, about me doing this is that every now and then I'm afraid you have to be a little patient whilst I have a drink. So, where did it go? Sarvis HQ. 3 large animals, a leopard, a wild boar, and a crocodile stand at the ready in the southern portion of this room. But on second inspection, they prove to be stuffed and mounted for display. What is it with the taxidermy in this campaign? There's always taxidermy. The walls are decorated with a striking tapestry depicting a 5-headed dragon. We know who that is. In a pose of destructive rage, a freestanding perch for a falcon and eagle stands in the room's northwest corner. Okay, cool. Wyrmlord Sarvith isn't fond of his current post here and would much rather be aiding Wyrmlord Hravik Khan in leading the horde into the Vale. He suspects that Nurkelnak was stationed here to keep tabs on him. So Sarvith has been careful not to speak ill of his superiors. While he waits for the Razor Fiend's eggs to mature, Sarvith spends his time catching, gutting and stuffing local wildlife. He's about halfway done with the sturge pinned to his table. His only pleasure is accompanying Regirix on the occasional hunting trip through the swamp. Sarvith struck up a friendship with the Black Dragon years ago, and knows that this friendship was the primary reason he, a lowly goblin, was promoted to Wyrmlord. He doesn't blame Regirix for this fact, but still harbours some feelings of inferiority when the dragon's not around. It wouldn't be while the dragon was around, I can guarantee you that. Wyrmlord Sarvith is here working on his stuffed sturge. If the PCs make it this far without raising the alarm somehow. His animal companion, a cruel-beaked eagle, waits patiently on its perch nearby. Wyrmlord Sarvith. Okay, let's have a little look at his stat block. So that's on page 113. Let's have a look. Sarvith. So he is, as I suspected, a goblin ranger. That explains the animal companion. With an armor class of 21, a masterwork greatsword and a longbow. He has a particularly vicious looking longbow. He has rapid shot, which is pretty great. And yeah, has a number of cleric spells prepared, including Long Strider to make him faster, resist energy. I wonder if it says what his favoured enemies are as a ranger. Oh, here we are. Favoured enemies. +4 against elves and +2 against humans. Nasty. Okay, well, that's good to know. Going back to page 63. So let's have a look at the tactics of Wyrmlord Sarvith. As long as he believes that the Razor Fiend and Nurkelnak still live, Wyrmlord Sarvith brooks no thought of surrender. If he can, he retreats to Area 3G to call on Regirix for aid in combat. Otherwise, he sends his eagle in to attack arcane spellcasters while he focuses his attacks on any elves or humans in sight. If Regirix is available, Sarvith clambers onto the dragon and uses his longbow against the PCs. He tries to bring the fight outside, where the dragon has air superiority, but is happy to fight from the dragon back, even if Regirix can't take to the air. So that's something as well, and something that hopefully the player characters have been thinking about, because if you're going into an area and you know that there's a dragon at hand, you need to have a plan. You can't just expect to go against a dragon, even a young dragon, and just, you know, they're incredibly dangerous and deserve, nay, demand preparation from player characters, and it can go badly wrong if you're not ready for one. So that would be interesting to see how the player characters would go into this combat. What does this text say here? Look at that illustration as well. Look at that. Look at his. Isn't he so cool? He's got this great sword over his back and that really vicious looking bow there. Wyrmlord Sarvith, a goblin ranger, prepares to skewer another enemy of the red hand. Yes. Yeah, he's awesome. And I love that that's the only reason why he was made a Wyrmlord, was because of his friend. Perhaps that could be information that can be learned that you could then goad Sarvith with to trick him into making a mistake of some kind. And his hubris be his downfall, perhaps. If he has learned that the Razorfiend and Nurklenak have been killed, Sarvith decides to cut his losses. He calls for Regiorix and fights the PCs until he is reduced to fewer than 25 hit points, or until Regiorix is reduced to fewer than 40 hit points, at which point he flies away west, intending to report to the High Wyrmlord, who has him tortured a bit, then sends him to rejoin the Horde under General Khan. I know how casual that is. Has him tortured for a bit. Okay, that's pretty ruthless. Once again, our adversaries are smart and they're not going to go quietly. They're not going to die quietly either, and if they have the chance and it makes sense, they will run, as the others have previously. So there we are. Interesting indeed. In his haste to escape, he neglects to retrieve the Ghost Lord's phylactery in Area 3G. Right, we should probably go back and look at 3G if it explains about the phylactery. No, I don't think we've seen 3G yet. No, it's here, because that's the dragon's lair. Okay. And he has some treasure in there as well, so an iron chest is locked, but it can be opened with Sarvith's key or a DC 30 open lock check. Wow. 6 large leather sacks, each containing 300 silver pieces and 20 gold pieces. Funds for bribes and payments to soldiers. So this is the army's wages here. And there's a letter, and it's written in Goblin, and it reads as follows: Sarvith, take great care with the enclosed phylactery. I need not explain to you what the Ghost Lord would do if he knew where I had sent his little bauble for safekeeping. Hide it somewhere safe. Perhaps if it could be trusted to your dragon's friend's keeping, keep it hidden until Brindle is taken. Should it fall into the hands of someone who could return it to its owner, the consequences for our effort could be dire indeed. Signed off as Ulwai. Certainly some intrigue there. My word. And now we move to 3G, which is the Regiorix's lair. So let's have a wee look at that as well. Let's see. This large room might have once been a well-appointed library, but now its shelves lie in disarray along the east and west walls. No sign of any books are apparent. A large portion of the ceiling is missing, as it is a corresponding portion of the floor, which opens into the dark waters of the lake below. So this is where the dragon would reside, Regiorix, and we've already learned really that the encounter would, prime encounter for this is to have Regiorix with Sarvith. So it's the two of them against the player characters. But there is every chance that the dragon could be fought here too. Let's see if we can read a little bit about that. So there, if they manage to get here, there is a 35% chance that the dragon is resting in this room. Otherwise, he's lurking somewhere in the waters below. So I love that there is a chance. You sort of get like a chance that you could roll for, which I like, to determine whether or not he was resting at the time or whether he was in the water, which I quite like. Unless, of course, they've been observing him, in which case he isn't here and has gone on a hunting trip. So they could be waiting for the dragon to return to his lair and spring a trap upon him. See, I told you, when fighting a dragon, you need a plan. So, that being said, Regiorix has laired in these Ruins of Rhest for a number of years. He has little interest in serving Tiamat, but has allied himself with the Red Hand for personal reason. He burns with the need to revenge against none other than Lord Cerdyn Jarmath of Brindol. 17 years ago, when young Jarmath was a member of the adventuring band known as the Knights of the Vale, he and his companions encountered a very young Regiorix in a Marth forest near Elsir Cross. Jarmath landed a lucky blow that sent Regiorix, so he keeps misspelling it, Regiorix there, fleeing for his life. The dragon returned several hours later to find his treasure had been stolen by the adventurers, down to the last copper piece. Regiorix fled to the Black Ferns to heal and plot his revenge. The dragon met Sarvith several years ago when the Goblin Rangers scouted out the city of Rest as a potential outpost of the growing strength of the Kolkor Zul. Sarvith promised to help Regiorix get his stolen treasure back someday, and that the dragon has aided the goblin, and through him the Red Hand ever since. Wow! See, that's cool. I love that it gives you background about their friendship. They are actually genuinely allies, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, it gives us the tactics of Regiorix, who knows that adventuring parties are dangerous customers and has little desire to confront the PCs in melee until he is sure of their strengths and weaknesses. His first act is to use his breath weapon against them, after which he hurtles out of the lake and into the air, through the hole in the roof, and he circles Rest several times, roaring challenges and imaginative profanities in Draconic, and waiting for the PCs to emerge, at which point he uses his breath weapon again. See, he's not stupid. I can just hang in the sky all day and just burn or scold you to pieces with acid, or erode you to pieces with acid. I don't know how you would describe that. You would have to have a think about that. Here we are. So if you see Sarvith emerge from the town hall, Regiorix swoops down and lands next to him, allowing the goblin to mount up before he takes again to the skies. Only after he and the Wyrmlord partner have managed to carve the party down to no more than 2 foes does he willingly engage in melee with them. If at any time Regiorix is reduced to 40 hit points or fewer, he withdraws from combat, taking his rider with him if possible. And there's lots of treasure in his area as well. He's garnered some treasure back from his encounter with Jarmath. Since his encounter with Jarmath, rather. I'm sure we'll learn about when we go to Brindol. So that is a +2 full plate armour, Periapt of Wisdom +2, +2 silver and mace. The rest of his hoard is gold and silver. Wow, lots of gold and silver it is too. Okay, so there's lots and lots of gold and stuff, but of course a small iron coffer unlocked contains the most valuable item of all, the Ghost Lord's phylactery, a delicate adamantine chain on which are threaded a lion's claws and teeth. It radiates a strong aura of necromancy and evil. Designer's notes: if the party is very tough and capable, consider making Regiorix a young adult black dragon, Monster Manual 71, instead of a juvenile. This makes the encounter level 9 rather than encounter level 7, but it means that he's a large dragon, which is just cooler. James and Rich. Thank you, James and Rich, once again. Yes, I would agree. I would agree on that. Make him a big boy. And then, yes, it says concluding part 2. So, maybe once I finish doing the Red Hand series, I might go back and retitle the videos to make sure that it's clearer. Because I know it's Act 3, and we're only concluding part 2. And we probably won't do all of Act 3 in this video at all. We'll probably introduce Act 3. But, it works. It works. Concluding part 2. Part 2 concludes when the PCs defeat the Red Hand agents in Rest. Yet there is much more for the characters is there is much more the characters can do in the Black Phase to prepare for the inevitable clash with the Horde than simply disrupt the Razor Fiend hatchery. The Ghost Lord's phylactery. The PC should now have learned of the involvement of a lich known as the Ghost Lord. Any PC who is a native of Elsir Vale knows the name as that of a local boogeyman. Said to dwell in the inhospitable Thorn Waste to the south. See page 67 for legends about the Ghost Lord. We will look at the legends of the Ghost Lord. I promise you that. We will not stop this stream until we've looked at the legends of the Ghost Lord. With a little luck, the PCs should have also gained possession of the Lich's stolen phylactery. The phylactery can be identified as such with an identify spell or a successful DC 25 Knowledge Arcana or Bardic Knowledge check. There's a chance the PCs simply don't find these clues. In this case, you can provide them with clues with a large group of Tiri Kitor elves search the Ruins of Rhest the day after the PCs rout the Red Hand from the flooded halls. The elves can find the phylactery there and present it to the PCs as a possible way to break the alliance between the Lich and the Horde. I have another suggestion, actually. Because, yeah, sure, they might not succeed on a Arcana check, particularly if it's quite a high one. DC 25, doable, particularly in 3.5, but still could miss it. But they may take it all the same, in which case you have the opportunity to have a cool scene where maybe they start hearing whispers coming from their belongings. Veiled threats being heard in the night. All kinds of spooky shit starts happening because, as we all know, phylacteries house the power of the Lich. And weird stuff could start happening if they don't realise what it is. I mean, it could start happening anyway, but that could be quite a cool clue to key them into the Ghost Lord's phylactery there. Here we are. This is what I was looking for before. So it's good that we've come to this. And this is the alliance points system that was discussed earlier, which I love the idea of. It's a really nice way of just having a simple way of tallying like how much you've helped in a particular area, and whether or not it's enough to be considered, a victory in this area or not. Really, this is the first major victory of the campaign in a lot of senses. Like, as we know, Drellin's Ferry is just a write-off, a complete massacre. The bridge was just delaying the inevitable as well. Here, at the Ruins of Rhest, there is an actual victory against the Red Hand. And admittedly, it is an outpost that's held only by a few of them. It's still pretty significant. The Hypotheticals, our party name, hopefully would have defeated the Wyrmlord here. But who knows? If the dragon and the Wyrmlord got away, then that's maybe an indication that maybe more forces will come here. We will have to consider that when looking at this table here, or this list here. So the Elf Alliance, the Tiri Kitor, have no love for the Kulkazul Hobgoblins, but neither are. What does that say? Neither are they eager to fight a war that looks as if it might pass them by. In short, the Tiri Kitor have no intention of aiding the humans of the Vale in defending Brindle from the advancing horde. The player characters can change that if they have befriended the elves with their words and impressed them with their deeds. Specifically, driving off the Red Hand agents from Rest, as we discussed. They have a good chance of establishing an alliance between the Tiri Kitor and the humans of Elsir Vale. Consult the following list of accomplishments and calculate the total number of alliance points the PCs have earned during this part of the adventure. I love this so much. So, slain the Razor Fiends. Award the PCs 1 alliance point for each Razor Fiend they slew in this part of the adventure, to the maximum award of 3 points. Okay, fair enough. Impressed elves. For each of the 4 key elves of Starsong Hill, made friendly through diplomacy checks or PC actions, award 1 alliance point for each of those elves. So those elf characters that we were talking about at the start. If you've impressed all of them, then you get an alliance point for each. For each elf might be helpful, award 2 alliance points. Okay, so when you succeed a check by a certain amount, sometimes in this, I've noticed that they say that you make people agreeable or helpful or unfriendly or aggressive, depending on, there's like a behavioural scale that sometimes is used in this module, I've noticed. But you could just do that with a pinch of salt. You could just say, well, yeah, they like you or they don't like you, get an alliance points. So you get 2 points if they're helpful anyway. Memorable performance. If any of the PCs performed during Lanakar's funeral, we would say, do you remember I noticed a little bit about the funeral earlier? If they were, if you performed successfully at the funeral, you were awarded 2 alliance points for a successful DC 20 check, or 1 alliance point for a DC 10 check. Okay. Imagine if you were really embarrassing, though. I would say that would be, if you're feeling particularly mean, which, to be honest, sometimes I am, it might be quite funny that it's memorable but not in a good way, and actually that deduces, like it reduces some of the points that the players have. They're like, well, we do remember that you slayed those Razor Fiends, and you did really impress us with your diplomacy and your plans to fight the Red Hand of Doom, but you did also fart incredibly loudly at that funeral, and it's just something we can't ignore. Kindness. If any of the PCs were unusually kind to the elves, such as giving gifts worth 100 gold pieces or more, or just giving them money, this is bribing them. Casting healing or restorative spells free of charge, or trying to console Trilara, who it seems obviously was close with Lanakar, giving them an award of 2 alliance points for that as well. Then defeating the Red Hand. If the PCs managed to drive the Red Hand's agents out of Rest and award them 2 alliance points. Cruelty. If any of the PCs were unusually cruel to any of the Tiri Kitor, reduce their alliance points total by 4. Hey, they were ahead of me, only they were discussing cruelty and not passing wind at a funeral, or performing badly or insultingly. Well, there we are. After you've tabulated the PC's alliance points, consult whichever of the following paragraphs applies. Alliance points 8 or lower. While the elves might be thankful for the PCs for driving off the Red Hand, they haven't been convinced to join the cause, and they refuse to risk their lives defending Brindle when they might need every last elf to defend their own lands. Further attempts to get them to join the fight only cause their patience to weigh thin. Yikes. Alliance points 9 through 13. The elves agree to send a group of Tiri Kitor hunters to Brindle to aid in the town's defence. This force could mean the difference between victory or defeat in Part 4. Okay. So some Tiri Kitor hunters. And the alliance points 14 or higher. So the best. The elves are particularly impressed by the PCs. Not only do they pledge a group of hunters to the Brindle's defence, but they favour the PCs with a loan of several of their beloved giant owls. Oh, 1 per PC for the next few weeks. They ask that the PCs treat the owls with the same respect and kindness the PCs have extended to the Tiri Kitor, and warn them that if they do not, the owls will abandon them. Oh my god, that is so cool. Oh, what a reward. I mean, there's magic items and they're gold, but then you get given a fucking owl steed. That's incredible. That is such a great idea. I love that so much. And then that unlocks all sorts of possibilities for this campaign. Like, let's have a quick look. No, I won't bring it up actually because I'll lose my place. But that map that we were looking at in sessions past, that great expansive map, well, imagine how much more proactive you can be in stopping invasion when you can move at the speed of a flying owl. A giant owl. Obviously it's a flying owl. Wow. That's so cool. So yeah, I mean, that's such a neat surprise as well. Like, because they've said at the start, listen, we can't part with our owls. But then it just shows that the amount of trust and respect and honour that has been shared with the Tiri Kitor results in you having the most trusted gift imaginable. The loaning of these owls, which you never know, by the end of the campaign may become so emotively linked with the player characters that perhaps eventually they will remain with them, which will be amazing. For those of you that have this is complete segue to something completely different. For those of you that are familiar with Dimension 20, there is an episode where they are, I think it's like the Netherland one, where they're all like fairy tale characters. It's really fantastic. But they had this joke idea where they didn't in the end, but they were going to come back and just start calling their party the Wind Riders, but make no reference as to why they're called the Wind Riders. Well, this would be a reason to be called the Wind Riders. Anyway, huge caveat just to say that. But anyway, it would be funny. So there we are. Wow, that is Act 2 done. And we have made a significant contribution to the effort in stopping the Red Hand of Doom. My goodness. Now, we are going to look into the Ghost Lord, and it did tell us that there were some Ghost Lord legends. But first, we're going to... No, I'll tell you what, we will use the recap to start the next episode, like I started this episode with a recap of what should be happening in Act 2 and going from there. Part 2, sorry. The video titles are confusing even me. Let's just look at the Ghost Lord lore, and that's where we'll wrap up, because it'll be cool to see what is looming. So this is Part 3, The Ghost Lord's Lair. Within the thorn waste, the Ghost Lord's lair awaits its next unwary prey. Look at that illustration of that lion. Motif of the lion. And remember, pardon me. Sorry, it's because I'm drinking Pepsi and rum. I know, right? I wanted ginger ale, but they didn't have any. There's a reference earlier on to a character that is like a paladin, that is like a lion guard or a lion warrior or something like that. And I think that might be linked. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. Let's read this and then sign out to see what looms in the future for the hypotheticals, which that name for a party is actually quite growing on me, the hypotheticals. So I think from going forward in our adventures of actually just going through this, our party is called the hypotheticals. So, the PCs, or the hypotheticals, make an important discovery near the end of Part 2, namely that the Red Hand has recruited a potent undead ally to its cause. The Ghost Lord is something of a local boogeyman, the central menace of a large number of bedtime stories and campfire tales. Most children outgrow these stories when they become adults, and the human populace of Elsir Vale regard the Ghost Lord as little more than a mythological bump in the night. Unfortunately for the Vale, the Ghost Lord is quite real. Ghost Lord lore. When the PCs discovered the Ghost Lord's phylactery at the end of Part 2, all they have to go on for determining its authenticity is a single letter, and perhaps the word of one of their captured enemies. Nevertheless, magic and research validates their suspicions. An identify spell reveals the object to be the Lich's phylactery, and a divination spell confirms the letter's claim. Simply destroying the phylactery would earn the characters the Lich's eternal enmity, but if they were to return it to him, perhaps they could undo the alliance threatening the Vale. The PCs can learn more about the Ghost Lord by making a number of knowledge checks. Since the Ghost Lord is a legendary figure in these parts, bardic knowledge checks can be used to obtain any of the pieces of information described below, against the same DC specified for a knowledge check. If the PCs don't have the appropriate skills, or no PC gets high enough check result to learn the key bits of information, they can consult with NPC allies, or research the Lich in the town of Brindle. NPC allies of the Of the oh my goodness me. Of the NPCs the characters have encountered and likely befriended so far, only Jor Nathan, because of his local knowledge, I think he's based in Drellin's Ferry originally, I could be wrong. Trelara Night Shadow because of her bardic knowledge, or Celeria Starsinger because she's old enough to remember the events of those days from personal experience, have a chance of imparting anything of value about the Ghost Lord. And the research says if none of the PCs or their allies can provide the necessary information, the characters must travel to Brindle to research the Ghost Lord. The most efficient method of researching the Lich is to pay the NPC spellcaster in the town for a legend lore spell concerning the Ghost Lord, with the phylactery at hand. The spell takes only 1d. Yeah, we know legend lore. All right. Alternatively, the PCs could hire a sage to research the Ghost Lord. For 5 gold pieces, they could have all the information given to them in 1d4 days. You go and do the research for us. I've never heard that before. I love that idea. That's hilarious. I love that idea. You there, sage. You know how to do research. Here's 50 gold pieces. For 50 gold pieces, you can hire a sage who will get the information for them in 8 hours. Oh my goodness. That's good. A sage who can provide the information more or less immediately costs 400 gold pieces. Wow. Information is power, and power is expensive. If the PCs just need a boost to their existing skills, they can utilise one of Brindle's libraries to aid their knowledge check. Okay, great. Let's learn a little bit about what they discover about the Ghost Lord. And then we'll go from there. A DC 50 knowledge local check is sufficient for the native Elsir Vale to recall campfire tales of the Ghost Lord. For an individual who is not native to the area, the same information can be obtained with the DC 50 and gather information check. Cool. Okay. These nomads... oh, God. I was going to try and skip a bit, then I realised if I skip that bit, then I need to read this bit. These tales speak of a once proud druid who dwelt in the verdant plains south of Rhest and led several tribes of nomads. These nomads were said to have built a massive lion of stone in honour of this great druid, who taught them the ways of the lion and how to live at peace with these proud animals. Yet, when dark times fell on Rhest, their shadow also fell upon the lion's plains. It began with when nobles visiting from Rhest arrived in the region. The nomads befriended the nobles, but were betrayed by them when the visitors hunted down and killed a lion monarch for his pelt and claws. The nomads reacted with violence, slaying these visiting nobles to a man. Rhest answered in kind, and its army marched upon the southern plains. The disorganized nomads stood little chance against Rhest's military might, and the tribes were slaughtered, despite the fact that the lions rose to defend them. The warriors of Rhest confronted and slew the druid between the paws of his own massive stone shrine. But the night after the warriors returned to their city, doom came to Rhest. Ghost lions prowled the streets, stalking and killing anyone they came across. When the dawn came, the entirety of Rhest's cavalry, including families, servants, and squires, lay dead. Rhest never recovered from this night of terror, which marked the beginning of the decline of that once proud nation. In the years since, the once verdant hills to the south have grown horrid, tangled. The thorn waste is all that remains. I don't know why it says entirety of Rhest cavalry, including families and servants. I don't know why it says that, but anyway. While this story is accurate in general outline, it gets several important facts wrong. A DC 25 knowledge history check is necessary to get the true details. Eurikiel Zal, the great druid of the story, was in fact the leader of a cruel lion cult based in the southern regions of the kingdom. His people were not the noble nomads legends recalls, but feral cannibals who believed that in death their bodies would transform into lions and therefore live forever. Eurikiel Zal was their undying lord and master, who had long before turned his back on the natural world for the tainted promises of eternal undeath. When the Rhestian lords sought to challenge his power and subjugate this region, their cavalry and the cultists destroyed each other, and in the years to come, both Rhest and the Thorn Waste fell to ruin as a result. The reason behind Eurikiel Zal's fall from grace cannot be found in libraries. It remains hidden in the depths of his great stone lion in the Thorn Waste. And I think that is a particularly poignant place to end it. There is so much history and so much lore and so much incredible detail in every paragraph of this module, and it is my continued joy to explore it with you guys, with me. Once again, apologies for the delay in the next part of this video. I do very much hope to ensure that I get a new part out much sooner than last time, and we shall continue the adventure and learn if there is any way of finding this Ghost Lord, and in the end bring about an end, hopefully, to the Red Hand of Doom. But I think we've got a long way to go yet. So for those of you watching live, thank you ever so much for dropping by. If you've enjoyed watching this, you might consider wanting to give us a follow on Twitch and hitting that bell so you will be notified when we go live, either for things like this or for our long-running 3.5 game Knights of the Apocalypse. And you might also be watching this on YouTube, in which case you know what to do. If you like this video, give it a like. If you'd like to see more like it, then give me a subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard.